Bonsoir. Shall we have a little chat about Macron then? Alrighty. So, now that Macron has won and seems to have won fairly big, as in having almost double the votes that Le Pen got, let's remind ourselves of what some of our press have actually said about him. I noticed an article in The Spectator saying that he is no friend of ours. There was, of course, Nigel Farage saying he is the enemy. I heard an interview with Ambrose Evans-Pritchard saying that he is a foe of Brexit, that Macron would die in a ditch for the EU and he is messianic about it. And Daniel Hannan was somewhat more kind by saying that he is the lesser of two evils. But if you think about it, even though these Brexiteers obviously dislike him for the fact that he is pro-EU and so not philosophically aligned with them, he is the very best thing that could come along for Britain, for the EU, for France, and also for science. Let's go through why. Firstly, for Britain, the obvious one is, imagine if Le Pen got in. What would that do to our negotiations? The negotiations, the most important things coming up for this. A Le Pen victory would just throw everything into chaos because Europe wouldn't know its own future. There would be a lack of cohesion between the EU 27, and that means everyone's pulling in different directions in terms of how to deal with the UK, and it'd be a complete mess and catastrophe. The other reason why Macron is good for the UK in these negotiations coming up is that the best entity that we can deal with is a confident, strong, stable, self-secure European Union. With the Eurozone growing at the moment, with these political hurdles being cleared, with the EU 27 looking strong and cohesive, and now Macron, who actively champions the EU, in place, then the EU has that self-confidence to actually make a deal with the UK based purely on pragmatic interests of trade and collaborations without too much fear that it will be undercutting ourselves. That is good for us for getting a better deal. And for those of us that still hope that there is an option to remain if we compare a deal on the table with what we've got at the moment, then that deal needs to be a fair and reasonable deal. Otherwise, what's the point? In terms of the EU, clearly Macron is a good option for the EU because he champions it, he understands it, he is both patriotic but can champion the EU and the whole philosophy behind it. This is very rare in politicians. If you look at David Cameron during the referendum debate, he completely shied away from it and was just talking about threats of leaving. That's no good, that is no use. So this is important, and if you think about the EU started with France and Germany, it's good if you have Germany acting as an engine for the EU and France actually finding its own role in terms of championing the whole mission. Macron is good for France because he is big tent politics. He's neither left nor right. He has the support of finance and business because of his background in finance, because he's looking to strip away bureaucracy and government burden. But at the same time, he is looking to keep protections in place for workers and also invest big in the economy of the future. So that is all important for France. In terms of science, Macron clearly understands the importance of science and research, which is great. During the Marches for Science, he put out a video calling to American scientists to come to France, and then when he visited number 10, he was also trying to make similar calls. Regardless of where you would like science flow to go in the world, this guy has clearly switched on to the fact that scientists are mobile, they're highly valuable, and it is an area worth investing in. So his thinking on that probably aligns very strongly with that of the EU, which is more and more about investment in science and innovation in order to generate jobs and high quality jobs in all part of the EU. So that is all a very good combination. The potential threats coming up is if Macron gets over competitive with the UK and looks to just do a straight up steal as best as he can from the UK to France. I doubt at the end of the day that that's going to be too heavy an option, because I think is largely very pragmatic and businesslike. The other threat is that he won't last that long if he can't put together a decent government, and at the moment is heading up a movement rather than a political party, and so it's hard for him to effect the change that he wants if he can't get together a government that can support what he wants to do. But for now, it's very good news for the most part to have a bright, young, charismatic, pragmatic person right at the heart of the EU, and the EU looking strong and stable and confident. That's good for us, that's good for them, that's good for the world, that's good for everyone.